Hi everybody, my name's Anna and I am here to show you week 6, block 5 of Blockheads 6. It's Dewdrops by Chelsi Stratton. It's a super fun block. I can't wait to walk you through it. So let's get started. If you haven't already, go ahead and download your pattern. You can find it on the Moda blog or on our official Facebook group for Blockheads. Great pattern. We have 2 different coloring diagrams for you because this week we're going to be making 2 blocks. So I've already finished 1 block and now I've got another one that I'm going to walk you through, and we're going to go step by step through it. There's a lot of little pieces in this one, but it goes together really easily. We've got the pressing instructions just right, so it's going to help you nest all those seams. So we're going to just dive right in and start with making our half square triangles. So in our pattern, we're going to be making a lot of little half square triangles, and we're going to make 2 at a time half square triangles. This is one of my favorite ways to do this kind of unit. So I've got a couple here. I'm going to put our squares right sides together, and we're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch seam on either side of the line from point to point. Now I haven't marked that line on my squares because I have a seam guide tape on my sewing machine bed, so it saves me a lot of time. Definitely recommend getting something like that, but if you don't have one of those, you can just draw a line from point to point and sew a scant 1/4 inch seam on either side. Okay, so I have sewn my 2 squares together, right sides together, so now I can just cut right here along that line, and I've got 2 half square triangles. I'm going to press these open. Primitive Gatherings right here is my background, so I'm going to press open towards my print, and then I'm going to trim these down to 2 inches. So I need to make 16 of these, so I'm going to go and make all of my half square triangles and trim those, and we'll come back and show you how to put them together. Okay, so I've made all 16 of my half square triangles and trimmed them down to 2 inches. So now I want to put them together in 4 groups of 4, just like this, following my pattern. We're actually skipping ahead to step 4 because now that I've got all those half square triangles made, I want to get them pieced into these little corner units. So just pay attention to the orientation of your half square triangles and your prints as you're laying these out. When I sew the pairs of half square triangles together, I'm going to press towards my darker one. It's the C print or the H print per the pattern, and that way when I sew the 4 together, my seams are going to nest. So I'm going to sew those, and they look like this when I'm done. Now I'm going to trim all of these units to 3.5 inches, and then I'll be done with the half square triangles. Okay, so I've got my units done. Now I'm ready to move to what's step 2 in the pattern, and that's to make these little X units here in the center. You're going to have 4 2-inch squares, and we're just going to sew like little snowball units with our smaller little 1 1/4 inch squares here. So what's really important in this step is to make sure that you're sewing a scant 1/4 inch seam. So if you're at your sewing machine, you might want to draw a line. It might help you if you don't have seam tape. And I want to make sure that I'm just like a thread's width on the outside of that line towards my corner here. That's going to give me that scant seam so that when I trim this little unit down, it's going to be the right size. Okay, I've sewn the first 2 corner squares. It's on opposite corners of my little center square here. Now, don't get out your rotary blade. Just get your shears. Don't take the time to bust out your rotary blade for this. Just snip right like that. To trim, you could just eyeball that 1/4 inch seam and just trim it just like that. And now I can press out my little squares. So I've sewn the 2 opposite corner pieces. Now I've got a 3rd square to add here to form the little wing of my X. And I want to show you how, look, it's really wonky looking right now. Don't worry about that. It's okay, because we're going to trim this up and it's going to be so nice and neat. And then when you sew it all together, all the pieces are going to match. So let's trim this. And I'm going to use this unsewn corner to line up on the 2-inch mark. Now I'm looking right here at my point and making sure that I've got that 1/4 inch seam allowance so that I don't lose that point when I sew all 4 of these units together. So let's just trim this real quick. Okay. Now I'll turn it around, trim it the other way. There we go. That looks a whole lot better, and it's going to look even better when we get it all sewn into our block. So I need to make 4 of these, and then I'm going to join them together for the center unit. Okay, I've got my 4 little squares done. Now remember, we've pressed them in different directions to help the seams nest. So I want to make sure that when I lay it out to sew the 4 pieces together that I alternate those seams so that everything will nest. So I want to make sure this one I have pressed in towards the green print. So on this one I want to have the units pressed out, and opposite here. So now when I put these together, you can feel that the seams kind of nest and lock, and that helps make sure that it's going to line up so nicely and you're not going to have the units shifting when you sew. When you sew the whole unit together, I press that middle seam open. So it's going to look like this. I've just sort of alternated how I press the seams, but I always press that center seam open. So I'm going to sew all 4 of these together and we'll have our center unit done, and then we can move on to the quarter square triangles. Okay, so I've got all of these sewn together, and look, I told you it would work out just perfectly after we trimmed up those little mini units. So I love this little center element of this block. I think this turned out so fun, and now I'm ready to move to the next step so that we can get this whole block assembled. Step 3 is to make our quarter square triangles, and these are going to go together just like that. So I've got my triangles cut and I'm ready to piece these together. I like to sew with whatever print I'm going to press towards on top. So I will flip these over like this. I'm going to sew along this edge for this pair, and I'm going to sew along this edge for this pair. I just think it's so much easier when I'm at my ironing board and I'm pressing all my seams open if I have whatever print I'm going to press towards on top. So I'm going to go sew these, and we need to make 4 quarter square triangles. I've got all my units done and laid out here. I'm working with Jen Kingwell prints, and that's kind of new for me. So this one's super eclectic and scrappy, and I have a lot of prints. So I was very careful with how I laid everything out. I've got it here ready to assemble into the full block. Now when I join the half square triangles to the quarter square triangles, I'm going to press towards the quarter square triangles. And then same here in my center row, I'm going to press towards the quarter square triangles. So I'm going to join all my little units together and get this block finished, and we'll talk about pressing it open. Okay, I have assembled my block and I love how it turned out. I'm having so much fun working with Jen Kingwell's mixed bag of lollies and mixed bag of bonbons for my blocks so far. It's just totally out of my wheelhouse, and I just think it makes for a really fun, cheerful and colorful block. You know, I kind of played around with the different color values, and that's what I love about Blockheads. It's such a great way to get to explore color and pattern and work on building your skills at the same time. So thanks so much for joining us today. I hope that you enjoy making dewdrops. Don't forget to post your block in our Facebook group. We can't wait to see how you interpret dewdrops. Thanks, Chelsi, for a great block. Like and subscribe so that you never miss a video. Thanks so much. Have a great day.